Welcome back to Azure Terraformer. Today we are going to build off of that KeyVault solution that we built previously. This time we're going to use the Azure AD Terraform provider, provision a group, add my user account to that group, and create an access policy that allows that group access to the secrets, the appropriate access to those secrets in that KeyVault. So yeah, without further ado, let's get started. So the Terraform provider that we want to use, we gotta go up here and go back. Oh boy. There we go. Azure Active Directory. There we go. Now let's go look at groups. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a group. Okay. And there's some permissions that we're going to need in order to have the Terraform service principal actually create the group. But for starters, let's just go set this up, and we'll call this access control. And we'll create the group. Admins. This will be the admins group. Boom. There we go. Now this is using the Azure. So the owner, they want to make the owner the Terraform user, which I'm cool with. We don't have a reference to that, but we do have a reference to this guy. I'm going to move this to a more appropriate location, main. So this is the current Terraform user, and it's the Azure RM client config. And on other episodes, I've referred to this and in how that we can use the Azure RM current client config and the Azure AD client config kind of interchangeably. But you don't want to do that because it will, like if you're just working on Azure RM, Azure ARM, deploying stuff to Azure, not Azure AD, it will implicitly create a dependency on the Azure AD provider, which you don't want implicit anything in Terraform, right? So that's a bad idea. So we already have our current config, authenticating to Azure. So we'll just use that. Security enabled. This is the group name. Wunderbar. Okay, so I think I'm good with this. Let's go look here. There should be like a group member. Okay, yeah, there we go. So now to add a group member, we need a member object ID. Okay. And in order to get an object ID for a user, we need a user. Okay. So I'm going to grab this and we're going to add members, and this is going to be members of the group. And I'm just going to call this admin member, and I'm going to keep plurality the same. And the group ID is going to be admin. And we need to go get the member object ID using this example here. And we're just going to put it in there. And so there we go. So now the Azure AD, we're going to get a data source reference to, so the user should be created already, right? We shouldn't have to, create users. But to make our lives easier, we might want to create like a local variable that has an array of users. Admin users equals an array, and then pass in different usernames. And then let me just add Kaiser. Okay, so we have two, so we can see how this works. And I'm going to declare this array of user IDs with the idea that in the future, if I wanted to add more, I could maintain this list in the source file and it would update. Now, like we've done previously using the count meta operator, I'm going to add count equals length of local.admin users. And then I'm going to grab because this data source block is now in a for each loop, essentially, I'm going to grab the count.index from this array of users. Okay, so I'm tying the count of this data source block to the length of this array, and then I'm accessing this array with the specific indexer for within that for each loop. So that's what I'm doing. And so this will get me n number of references to an Azure AD user object using these usernames. And then I can create n number of group members down here using the same technique. So again, I'm going to set the count equal to length of local.admin users. And then I'm going to the group ID stays the same. That's constant. But the member object ID is going to vary. And so the Azure AD user, I need to change this from example to admin user. Admin user, singular. What is happening? Macintosh is taking over. And then I'm going to use the count.index in order to get the correct index of this object within my reference to the group member. So there we go. So we should be good there. Let me just, normally I don't like to have the count meta operator mixed with other meta operators, but in this data reference, like data source, we're literally like, those are the only two attributes. So I think this is this is cleaner, and I could probably do the same thing here. So let me just, add that up. Okay. So this code should be good. I just RTFM'd the documentation. Of course I've done this before, obviously. I'm live coding this. I have no idea if this code's going to work. I have an educated guess. But the permissions for my Terraform user, I think, are the biggest problem. There's a slight risk that I may have made a syntactical error or just oversight or something. But I know for sure that if I commit this code, this is going to fail, because the Terraform service principal does not have permissions in Azure AD to create groups or to manage the membership of that group. And why do I have an unsaved file? Oh, this KeyVault here. What did I modify in that KeyVault? Oh yeah, I just moved that. So by saving that file, you always gotta pay attention to unsaved files in your in your VS Code, because you will get Terraform like duplicate things, like conflicting names and stuff like that, because you did not remember to save a file where you moved something from one file to another, and it gets pissed off. So it's a good idea to always be on the lookout for that. So add group and membership to admin users. Okay, there we go. So let's run a plan here. Probably should add some triggers to that so that when I merge in there, and I should probably protect this branch, but whatever. Anyways, let's go while that's failing. Let's go look and see what we need. So the following API permissions are required to use this resource. When authenticating with the service principal, it will require one of the following roles: group read write all, directory read write all. So if I go into, so what does that mean? Well, the service principal that I'm using, let's go look at it. I'm going to go to my app reg. I'm going to go look at my Terraform dev, and I'm going to go look at my API permissions. Yeah, there we go. So this is the service principal that I'm using, Terraform dev. I use a corresponding one, Terraform prod, for prod deployments. It only has, by default, any user you create has user.read, right? And it's delegated, and you can read your own user profile, which is the most basic access that you have. But if our Terraform user is going to be managing Azure AD groups, then we need this permission, right? So let me go add that permission. And I think it's maybe, and I can't remember if it needs to be delegated. So I think it's an application role. Application permission, group, read, write, all. There we go. Okay. So let's add that. Now, not granted for my tenant. Okay. So you can go and, as a user, request these API permissions for Azure AD, but an Azure AD global admin has to go then grant them. And I happen to be logged in as a global admin. Yes, thank you. It's my own tenant, so of course I'm in God mode, right? But so I can go ahead and, like, this button right here is the button that the admin is going to use to go grant your permissions. But 9 times out of 10, you're not going to be the one that's going to smash this button. It's going to be an admin that you begged, bartered, and stole for to smash that button for you. So the admin has to consent to your request, and there we go. So this now has been granted to that user. Let's go look at the pipeline. Of course, it failed. Let's see how it failed. Finding user. So we don't even have the ability to find users with these names. Wow. I think I need to verify if the user names are even correct. You know, I only have 2 users. So Mark and Kaiser. So I definitely can't find Kaiser. Let's go look here. Yeah, Mark and Kaiser. So we need to go look at the Azure AD user here and see what permissions this needs, right? So that would be under users, data sources. There we go. So whenever you're using the Azure AD, provider, you really need to pay attention to what permissions that you need in order to do whatever the thing is. You're going to need a lot. So here we need our service principal needs user read all. I think I did a mailbag episode, but I was logged in using AZ login with my credential, like my personal credential, and I'm global admin. So I'm God. I can do anything. But what we're seeing right now is the service principal, the new baby service principal that I created for Terraform dev, Terraform prod. It can't do any of that stuff because it has no permissions to Azure AD. So we are literally hand rolling Azure AD permissions as we go here. So let's go back. Terraform dev, API permissions. Let's add another permission. Microsoft Graph application and user read all. There we go. And of course I need to grant that again. So let's smash grant because I happen to be global admin, basically God. And let's rerun plan. And I'm probably going to get another error, but a different one, because now I can read the users. I can create groups, but when I run Terraform plan, I'm not actually trying to create a group. So Terraform will not run into that issue, I don't think. But there may be some read access that I don't have. We'll see. Or maybe it'll succeed, and we can try and run our apply. So yeah, there we go. The plan was successful, and you can see we got a group that's going to be created. We have a group member, 2 group members, one for Kaiser and one for me. Yay. And let's go cross our fingers and run apply. Now this, I suspect, will fail, but not on group creation, not on user read, but maybe on group membership control. If I recall correctly, there is an Azure AAD permission that grants you can create groups, but adding users to groups is a different permission altogether. So maybe the permission we added is included in there. I'm not sure. I can't remember. We'll see. We're going to find out very quickly. Okay, yeah. So we successfully added the users in the groups. Wonderful. Now, if we go look at that in Azure AD, we can go to groups, and we don't own this group, but it's owned by somebody else. Azure Terraformer DevOps Dev Admin. So if you're in this group, you can't do anything yet. We haven't assigned any permissions. This is the owner, the Terraform Dev Service Principal, and these are the members, me and Kaiser Sosa, having a great time, right? So now let's grant this group some permissions. That was the whole goal of this episode. So for KeyVault, we want to have an access control policy. Now for this group, I don't think we need all these things. When you're using the SSH key, it probably helps to list them, but you really need to get the value, right? So I'm going to change this from Terraform user to admin user. And then instead of the object ID being the current Terraform user, I'm going to use the object ID from the group. So I've got Azure AD group, and that is no longer a data source. It is a resource that we're creating. And I'm pretty sure it's called admin. And let's see what IntelliSense tells us. So can we use, object ID. There we go. So now let me add the add access to group. There we go. And so when do I need to do a pull request? I think I'm on main. Yeah, I'm good. So I really just need to run plan, I guess manually. Okay, and the plan says we're going to create this access policy for this admin user, and it's going to be for this random GUID, which I presume is the group ID GUID. Of course, I have no clue because I don't have these identifiers memorized. A colleague of mine at work famously jested that Azure is the most sophisticated GUID generator on the planet. I thought that was really funny because I couldn't agree more. I mean, like every resource in Azure has a GUID, sometimes multiple GUIDs. So it's quite funny. Which I'm not complaining. I mean, I think GUIDs are more usable than ARNs on AWS. So just throwing that out there. But okay, so our access policy has been created. So now if we go back to our KeyVault dev and we go look at our secrets, let's hit refresh. I should have access let's go look at access configuration. So AZTF DevOps Dev Admin get list, that should be in there, and I am in that group. I wonder what's going on here. Well, I'm quite vexed. Demo fail. Let's go look at the group. I am in the group, right? Like this is the group. Object ID 3682 blah 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 members. Moi. Okay. Access policies. AZTF DevOps Dev Admin. That's it. That's it. Maybe it's cached in the browser. Oh my God. Do you see that? Did you see that? It's freaking cached in the browser. So like that access policy had been baking there for a long time. Like it was coming up. But this secrets panel, this is a bug. We just discovered a bug in the Azure portal, everybody. Access policies are cached, requires an F5. You will not see your access policy take effect until you hit F5 on the secrets panel. There you go. Anyways, let me go look at this public value. Show secret value. There you go. So there we go. So we set up an Azure AD group. We set up members of that group based on their usernames. We granted Azure Active Directory permission to our Terraform service principal so that it could create and manage those groups. And we have a source code repository now that we can maintain a list of members of that group just by adding users to that list. And anybody in that list, in that array, will get KeyVault access to be able to access our dev environment. And then likewise, we can use that same code to manage prod. Now, the users in those groups might be a little bit different. So we might have to, for dev and prod, have a different set of users piped in. Currently, I've hard coded them in the source code file, right? Like over here. Let's go look. There we go. So I've hard coded them in the source code file, but we have a TFRs file for dev and a TFRs file for prod. I can easily extract the admin users as a parameter, and then in the future, have a different set of users for dev and a different set of users for prod, which sometimes is the case. So anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope this was helpful. We really kind of decompressed Azure AD, Azure RM, and we finally did our mashup video between those two providers, and using a very, I think, pivotal service, KeyVault, to do it. So I hope you enjoyed it. Smash that like button if you did. Make sure that you hit subscribe if you haven't subscribed, and also smash that bell so that you know when my next video drops. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, this is Azure Terraformer signing off.